Hello and welcome back to the POMCAST. That's right, we're back with another fantastic episode on digital marketing. Today we're going to get into it on search engine optimization. Yeah, that acronym that we've all been loving for decades now, SEO. And of course, I'm joined always by Mike Shaug from Premier Online Marketing. But Mike has brought an extra POM team member today. And who do we have joining us today, Mike?
Absolutely. Fernandez is by far the best SEO I've ever worked with us, that we've ever worked with here at Premier. He came in as an associate, which is kind of at the entry level. And within 1 year, he worked his way to head of product for SEO. And he's the associate director for our automotive and SMB vertical. He just is extremely knowledgeable about SEO, local SEO, off-page SEO. So I wanted to loop him in for an SEO conversation so I don't monopolize everything talking about paid ads.
Well, that's exciting. Welcome, Andres. This is going to be a great episode. Are you ready for it? Are you excited?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and honored as well. Mike always hypes me up, but I just try my best.
There's nothing wrong with being humble and extremely talented at the same time, and especially when you don't ever actually read your own newspaper clippings, as they say, or pay attention to your own fame. So that usually speaks volumes about the quality of the individual's talents. So I'm excited about this episode because we haven't yet on the POMCAST, we haven't really broken in on SEO. And I know in conversations that I've had with Mike that there's been a lot of discussion around an SEO playbook that you guys have been working on. I want to dig in a little bit, and for the audience that's listening and or watching, that's kind of what we'll be talking about. These primary objectives really for today's discussion will be around this SEO playbook that you need to know is in the works. It will be a very, very helpful asset for people. And there's a lot of focus here for car dealerships. So in the automotive industry, Premier Online Marketing obviously does a lot of work in automotive, among other verticals. But today there's a strong focus on that SEO as it relates to the automotive industry, driving visibility, converting traffic, a lot of the things that some people may think that they've heard before. But I honestly think that we still underserve the audience from an SEO education perspective. People just kind of head nod, or they feel like they've heard enough from maybe a few of the people that have been more popular over the years. But it doesn't always mean that the knowledge translates to action in the dealership. So we're going to look at some of the differences between local SEO and organic search, how dealerships can optimize for those things. And we're going to let you guys give us some examples if you want. You can be as specific as you want from strategies. And I know that there will be a lot of what we talk about that will end up in the playbook. I think that will help people get really excited about having a resource. It's been a while since something like this has been available, especially for auto dealers. And I can tell that there's going to be some very, very interested people on this. So thanks, guys, for joining. I appreciate you guys taking the time for the POMCAST. I want to start by asking at the really top of this is, what was the purpose, or what made you guys kind of think, let's put an SEO playbook together? What inspired you to create it?
I feel like the general advice for SEO is, for any industry, is to focus on technical and focus on your website load time and just all this other just advice that is just very broad. And for auto specifically, and for SMBs and local, there's very little impact. I'm sure for e-commerce sites and for all the other industries like enterprise, this technical is really is great for them. But on our end, we just want to create a playbook that could help auto dealerships take actionable steps, understand SEO, take actionable steps, and really move the needle on their organic rankings.
I think that's great. Dealers are always looking for kind of practical steps. Mike and I have talked to dealers about digital marketing for so many years now. I'm sure Mike's heard me say it. I know a lot of people have, but the technology moves so fast that most verticals, they have a hard time keeping up with it. SEO has very much been one of those things where people, again, they think they have an acceptable or working knowledge of it, but they don't realize that it is actually a very dynamic part of the digital marketing strategies, and things change. So I want to ask you guys a little bit about some of the definitions around SEO for small and medium businesses, dealerships. Some people get confused with that. Most dealerships would be categorized as an SMB, but if most dealers are not referring to themselves as small to medium-sized businesses in this particular case, how do you define SEO for dealers? And why do you guys think it's crucial for dealers?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, if you're ranking at the top of Google Maps or the map pack and organic search at the same time, you're basically getting free traffic, right? And you can definitely, if you have a large ad spend budget, you can spend your money on more specific things like model terms or just like even trim terms. But I think for the and when you focus on that strategy, you're competing against other ILSs. So really it's really important for dealerships to have a good organic presence, especially in large markets like Houston and LA, where competition is very rough, and it really doesn't take a lot. Like people think like, oh, SEO is like this. Nobody like the algorithm and all this stuff. Like it's just hard to understand. But I think like just having a playbook, having some actionable steps that most dealerships can control without the need of their CMS support, that they can start getting good rankings and start getting to the top of their market. So
One thing to add here is that organic traffic converts about 3 times better, at least, than paid media traffic. So you notice this often with dealer groups when they expand and they buy a new dealership in a new market, and they're like, why do I have to spend $15,000 over in this new market? I'm spending $3,000 over in the other market. But it's not an apples to apples comparison, because oftentimes dealerships will have several thousand visits, which is like $20,000 of free traffic that they're building their business with.
Yeah, that's an important addition there. I would think this audience also would be interested in some of the more common misconceptions that dealers have about SEO. It's been a topic for obviously a long time, and there have been a handful of messengers on the topic, and there have been a handful of companies that have gone really strong with their SEO presence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all of it's been helpful to car dealers over the years. So we'd love it if you guys would share a little bit about what some of those common misconceptions that dealers have about SEO might be.
Well, one of them is that AI is gonna completely like ruin local SEO. I think unless Forbes or I don't know, Business Insider creates a local directory like Forbes.com/local, and then they pump up their pages with AI content, then I think that we're gonna be good. One of the key advantages of local SEO is that the map pack always comes first, right? The map pack is always at the top, and then you have the ILSs, the internet listing services down below, and they don't have an address, they don't have a local presence, they just list local businesses in there. But really, what draws people's eyes is the map pack with the reviews, with all of that. So I think that that's the advantage that local has over all of these other ILSs that are just creating AI content and pages en masse. So I think that's one of them.
I think another one that we get a lot is why invest in SEO? It's really hard. It takes a super long time. And the OEM websites or the internet listing websites like Cargurus or Autotrader will always outrank us no matter what. But we've been able to get really great traction for dealers that are serving all different types of markets. And Google does favor local businesses. They know that when people are looking for cars, they're primarily looking for someone local to transact with. And that's just something that a lot of dealerships don't know. So obviously it takes time to build on these strategies, but you can absolutely outrank some pretty big websites with your local website.
Yeah, those are really good points. I know for years, I think there's always been some misconceptions around because there's been a lot of price discrepancies. Like you can go to your website vendor and Andres, you had mentioned, that there aren't always limitations just because you're with a website provider that has a pretty stout or locked down CMS, right? Where there's maybe not a lot of permissions given to the actual dealer to do much in the back end of the site. And that's not always a limitation. But one thing that has become a misconception, I think, over the years, I'm curious to know if you guys would either agree or have any additional comment on it. But there have been providers that will say, well, hey, we'll do the same level of SEO. It will have the same effect for you for an extra $600 a month versus more specific providers that are probably just doing a lot more that will charge $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month in SEO. I think what ends up happening for dealers is that's confusing to them, but it creates a misconception for those that maybe aren't going to take the time to listen to maybe a podcast like this. They're not going to get their hands on an SEO playbook and really understand some of the intricacies that would probably unlock the door in their own minds to ask questions of a provider. How can you provide all of these things that I've learned, right? Because there's a lot of detail that goes into being effective and good with your search engine optimization. If you gave a dealer enough information that they could ask their vendor the question, how are you able to accomplish all of these things for $600 a month? Sometimes that would, one, dispel maybe a misconception that the value is equal, but also I think would unlock the door for a lot of dealers to realize there's no possible way that we could be getting this amount of value for an extra few $100s a month tagged onto the bill, where that is usually probably a place where the vendor, it's an easy extra way to get some profitability built in versus really giving great value to the dealer. Anyway, I think that creates a misconception of value for dealers. I think it has for many years. And I can move on unless you guys have any thoughts on that.
I do. I actually, I did work for a few of the big auto shops, as you know, and there was kind of one of those situations where we had a very low cost, easy bolt-on SEO product. And that was less than $1,000. And basically all we were doing was reading Google Analytics back to them and letting them know what happened. If it was good, great. If it was bad, then, it's the algorithm's fault or whatever. But ultimately within SEO, you actually have to do a lot of work beyond analysis, beyond reading the same tools that everybody uses. And what's really important is that you really look at the scope of what these providers are charging, because small, cheap SEO scopes are extremely common across every vertical that we work in. But when we look at what has actually happened in terms of work and deliverables, typically it's like a light onboarding and then they just kind of move on. I really do think that typically one of the worst companies to do SEO for you is your website provider, because they'll, at least on the technical side, they'll tend to hide things from you that are limitations with their platform, because obviously they don't want to mess up the website and kind of bundle deal. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on cheap SEO skills.
Yeah, I have grown probably less gracious or kind to the website providers who also provide SEO and try to sell it really hard. And I know you worked from those shops. We worked at one together that did a pretty good job of actually selling it with websites. And one of the things that I am probably a bigger critic of today than I ever have been is if your website provider is also your SEO provider, the likelihood that they're also your paid media, your paid advertising provider, paid search, if you're doing remarketing, display, anything across the Google Ads platform, is likely that they're doing all of it. And maybe you made that decision because it's convenient, right? Just keep it all in one place. But the consequences of making decisions like that are really where the problem is. And dealers most of them just don't know to ask questions that would be like, hey, website provider, what's my average conversion rate of all the traffic that comes to this wonderful website that I get from you? And they tell you, well, it's around 2%. That's the, that's the national average. That's the automotive average. And it has been for about 30 years, which is pathetic. Then I go back to say, well, okay, if 2% is as good as it really gets, and there are some industries where it's really hard to get, out of single digits, I understand. Okay, but if you're my SEO provider as well, and I'm spending all of this money, and you spend no time trying to make the conversion environments actually pay off better, I want to have really serious conversations with a provider that wants all of that business and does nothing to work on better conversion outcomes. Like if I take my business to Premier Online Marketing, right? Now I'm working with people like Andres and Mike Shaug who have a vested interest in the outcome of what happens with all of this effort. Does it get dropped off in the desert? There's nobody there, is just left, or is it being put into environments where it has its best chance of turning into a sales opportunity or a business opportunity? I think that's really, really critical. And I could go on and on and on about some of these things, but let me get back on track with you guys. All SEO is not the same. And as much as it's been a conversation for a long, long time, I think it's really prudent to cover this and get your guys' perspective. Because all the SEO isn't the same, that means that local SEO is different than technical SEO. It's all SEO, right? There's water, there's ice, there's vapor, but it's all SEO, local, technical, and beyond. Where should dealers focus? And maybe a secondary on that is, what will the focus of your playbook be relative to this topic of SEO not all being the same?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, for car dealers, I mean, local SEO is the name of the game. I think that a lot of dealers think that, I just want to rank on top of Google for like in the blue links, which are the traditional blue links that you see when you search for something. But as I mentioned earlier, most people's eyes are drawn to the map pack, and it has a higher click-through rate if you're ranking in the map pack than in organic search results, especially for queries that have both of them as in the search results. So it's really important to just maximize your local SEO, maximizing every ranking factor that local SEO has in order to get better rankings. And it's a completely different game. I mean, there are some similarities in terms of what factors help you rank in the map pack than in organic search, but it's just a different algorithm. I mean, relevance is one of them, local relevance, prominence. So just any type of reviews, not just Google reviews, but also third-party reviews, help you rank in the map pack. So yeah, it's a completely different game, with some similarities, but, dealers should invest into local SEO more than organic search. And, as Mike mentioned, traffic coming from Google, from the map pack, is highly likely to convert than just going straight to your website and clicking on a form and whatnot. Like if you get phone calls from GVP, that's higher. That just has a higher chance of converting or getting in like a demo, or like getting into your dealership than someone that just fills a form on your site.
So let's talk a little bit about the importance of the visibility in search engines. I know a lot of dealers kind of start with that. They're like, okay, I understand the concept that I need to show up when people are searching. There's not my line. I'll credit Sasha Strauss. I think he still is a professor at USC and UCLA's business schools. He's an amazing brand marketer, brilliant guy. And he famously says, can't buy what I don't know exists, or I can't buy what I can't find. So search is really the tip of the spear in most cases when you're thinking about, well, I'm a car dealership and where do I want to win first when I start talking about all these digital marketing options, or when I start to talk about SEO. And I think that's at the top of mind for most people, like visibility. So how does SEO drive organic traffic? And maybe specifically, how does it drive traffic that converts?
Yeah. Well, it's very important that, for example, for car dealerships, we see a lot of OEM content, just generic content that's not targeting any geos or any specific models. We just see the cookie cutter content on most dealerships that are not doing SEO. And this type of content is just the same, the same copy and paste that you see on most dealerships. And so, what we focus on, we create specific content that targets the geos that they want to target, or that are nearby, that they're interested in, that they get the most clients from. And we also focus on creating pages that are relevant to what users are searching for. So if, in their geo, in Ohio or whatever, people are searching for Ford Bronco a lot more than the EV Mustang, then we'll focus on the Ford Bronco and beef up those pages, make it informative, make sure that the inventory is displayed, that when the user lands in that page, that they have all the information that they need to schedule a visit, or to call the dealership. And so a lot of dealerships lack that. And I think it's something that is undervalued as well.
Andres is very, very humble, but there's a situation in mind where we had a Toyota dealership that wanted to rank in a city very, very far away. And I laughed and told him, no, I don't think this location page is going to work. And a few months later, we were ranking in the city that was hours away. So it's definitely possible with specialized content for the users. I mean, I think a thing that a lot of dealerships, especially new car dealerships, forget is that they're not just repping Ford or Toyota, they're repping that for their market. And oftentimes on websites, you don't see very many geographically specific pages for the keywords that they would really like to show up for. Another big area that tends to be a blind spot for new dealerships is they don't show up for used terms, and they don't show up for finance. They really are just completely optimized for whatever the 2024 new car lineup is, and they're missing out on, the vast majority of buyers, which are actually used car buyers. So that's another huge area of opportunity that we've been working on with our product.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that is, it's a funny story. This happened recently. One of our clients, I worked with them for more than 2 years. We created a bunch of content, bunch of pages targeting models, targeting different geos, and they had to migrate their site to another CMS. And like part of the deal was to migrate their SEO over there. So they unfortunately canceled. And then you see their analytics nowadays, and like they tanked like 30% in 1 month because the new website provider deleted all our content and just put generic content in there. And it's just, sad to see our content, go to waste, and sad to see our client, get, or ex-client get worse results. So, yeah.
I had the very same thing happen this year, where on the B2B side, where some of the things we were doing, and we were not, from an SEO perspective, we weren't doing exactly what you were doing. But it was having a huge SEO effect in terms of the content we were making and then applying it to interior pages on their site. And they decided that they were insane. So they switched strategies like a hard left turn, and it's been a steady decline into who knows what they're trying to accomplish now. Sometimes you can't help people from themselves. You can't save them from themselves. And I think that's why having conversations like this and creating podcast episodes like this allows people to get into it. And sometimes even people that are consuming the POMCAST episodes on a regular basis now, you don't always have an hour to sit down and watch the whole episode at once or listen to the whole episode at once. Sometimes you do. But nowadays we can even take podcast episodes like this and chop up bite-sized pieces of this content so that people get a little bit of Andres explaining a concept like, oh, that's great. And then that leads them to go and listen to more. And I think, again, this kind of just points back to why it's great that you guys are putting a new playbook together. I think that that's long overdue for the industry to have something that's fresh. And just in general, educating on the topic is huge. So in keeping with that, keep the conversation going. I know this has been mentioned already a little bit in the episode, and I think this can confuse people. May not be a misconception, but I don't think a lot of people talk about the difference between local SEO and organic search. And I'd love to know your perspective on that, because there is a difference when you talk about things like Map Pack and Google Business Profile, right? There's a lot of local things relative to, your business is considered to be a local business, not a national or a global business by Google. And so there's strategically things that you do differently. Tell me from your perspective, what's the difference between local SEO and organic search? Why should dealerships care about either or both?
Yeah. So, for local SEO, you're competing against other businesses in the area, right? I mean, it's just you against the other dealerships, whether they're, like if you're a Hyundai dealership, you're competing against other Hyundai dealerships, but you can also be competing against used car dealerships, buy here, pay here dealerships, and so you're only competing with local competitors. For organic search, it's a little bit tougher because you're competing against the ILSs, Cars.com, Carfax, Autotrader, and so they have huge SEO budgets. They spend millions of dollars on that every year, and here you are, a local business trying to compete against them. And so, yeah, those are the main two differences. Would be competitors. The other one would be how Google ranks or promotes you to be at the top 3 in the map pack or the top 3 in your organic search results. Like they're completely different. They're completely different algorithms, as I mentioned earlier. And the third difference I would say would be the click-through rate. If you're on the map pack, it's just higher. It has a higher click-through rate than the organic search results, simply because of visibility. But also having on the map pack, you have the reviews, number of reviews, and review rating. So there's a little element of social proof in there. Just by knowing that the dealership that you're dealing with is trustworthy. And the last thing is that reviews can also, or a snippet of the review can show up in the map pack. So if you're selling a Honda Civic and you're looking for that, and one of your reviews mentions Honda Civic, then Google will promote that listing over the others. So, yeah.
Nice. So you touched on this a little bit, so I'm not going to get too much into ranking factors and algorithms, but I think that's an important distinction for people to remember. For years before, what did they call it, Mike, back in the days of Mobile-geddon? Is that what it was? Everyone was like, oh no, Mobile-geddon. When Google they will tease about things that are coming, and the mobile algorithm was such a hot topic for so long. Website providers thinking, hey, are we responsive? How will our sites look? Are we ready for this? But that also does speak to the fact that Google looks and operates differently from a desktop searches, mobile searches, and all of the ranking factors that are a part of these determinations of where you show up and how well you're going to perform from a local SEO perspective are actually, I think it points back to the comment I made earlier, which is SEO has and always will be dynamic. Every year, there's always some carnival barker saying SEO is dead, like it's dead, the links don't matter anymore, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, it's like, whoops, there's a little bit of a leak. And now all of a sudden, Joy Hawkins and Rand Fishkin's talking about it again, getting himself, all in trouble again. But he's kind of been vindicated for a lot of the things that he was concerned of for years. All that to say, though, my point is, and I think that this conversation is really illustrating it well, is SEO is a dynamic part of digital marketing strategy. Always has been, always will be. And it is very difficult for business owners. Let's just stay focused on car dealers, and not a criticism. It's difficult for a car dealer to be up on all of the knowledge necessary to know there is an angle. It's not even an angle. There's an element of trust that's really, really important in terms of, well, who are you working with? How are you trying to make sure that I'm educated so I at least know what's going on? And then I can have some ability to inspect and know what's happening. And I think some of that is just teaching people. So again, I'll just come back to the fact that you guys are putting all of these elements together in a playbook. I think also will be really, really helpful for people, not only your own clients. There will be other people. I'm sure there will be people who say, man, nobody's being quite this transparent and honest with this. We want to talk to you guys. But I think that's really, really critical. So moving on from that, could you explain a little bit of these pillars of local SEO? I know some people are familiar with proximity, but that's another part. I love to just hear you talk a little bit more about those pillars of local SEO and why proximity is so important.
Yeah, great question. So, as I mentioned earlier, local SEO has different ranking factors in organic search. A lot of people think that, if I just fill up my website with content and links, I'm going to be good. And part of that could be true, but there are other factors that affect how your website is promoted on the map pack. And those factors are prominence, proximity, and relevance. And I'm going to dive into them a little bit, but relevance just means how your content or your Google business profile, how relevant is it to the user's search or query, right? So if you're a flower business or a car dealer, and the user is looking for a car dealer or a used car for sale, and you happen to sell that, then they're gonna find you. But if you're a Hyundai dealer and your client is looking for a new Ford F-150, it's very unlikely that you'll be showing up in the map pack. So that's relevance. Prominence is basically how trustworthy you are, how authoritative or how much authority you have, and that comes down to reviews. Backlinks have some level of impact on SEO, on local SEO, but over the years that's been slowing down a little bit. It still works. I'm not saying it's dead, by the way. But I'm just saying that Google just uses other factors, and a lot of times they just trump prominence. So, for example, so as I mentioned earlier, reviews are very important, and the type of reviews that you have are also very important. So if you have a bunch of naked reviews, so just 5-star reviews with no testimonial or anything, those have not as much impact as a written review that may include a keyword, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, if your reviews contain some keywords in there, then Google will pick up on that and use them to promote your business in the map pack. And then video reviews, like reviews that have contained in video or photo, are also super important, and they increase click-through rate as well. So there's levels to reviews.
How?
And also having reviews on other sites like Yelp, because a lot of people are using Apple Maps more, and Apple Maps pulls reviews from Yelp, so they don't have their own review system. So having reviews there is important, and so that is the prominence aspect of local SEO. The third aspect would be proximity, and I want to dive a little bit deep into this, because this creates a lot of confusion for um, GMs or marketing managers in car dealerships, right? Proximity is how close is the searcher to your business location, right? And this is a big factor, because you might be in your business might be in San Diego, for example, but it's more like on the edge of Chula Vista, and they're like, why are we not showing up? Like, why are we not getting all this organic traffic if we're the only San Diego dealership? But then the other San Diego dealership could be in Carlsbad, or it can be La Jolla, which is closer. And then they might get they might be closer to the audience that they want to get, if they're like, high income earners and such. So proximity comes is a big factor, and it can trump the other factors down, just because the searcher is closer and Google is trying to give the user the best result. Also, what we get a lot is car dealers that are like, hey, I'm sitting at home and I'm in I'm in San Marcos, right? And my dealership is in Austin, downtown Austin. And when I look for Hondas for sale, my competitors is ranking above me. Like, what's going on? Or like a family member says that, right? And you're like, well, I mean, I wish there was something we can do about that, but if you're at home and you're not close to your business, and there are other closer closer businesses to you, then those are the ones that are gonna get promoted. And that is something that we get a lot. Right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't really game distance with the map pack, if I'm understanding you correctly. You can do it with organic search or the non-map listings. So like if you create a geographic page using that example, it would take a very long time for a San Marcos dealer to rank anywhere in Austin, but it is hypothetically possible with the right amount of content and links. But the map pack will only show people that are really kind of in that area. And it's really important that dealers try to focus their SEO, their local SEO, on where they are actually physically located, because that is where they're going to have the best success and the best momentum. I had a question for you, Andres. In terms of local SEO, how important are citations? Are citations dead, or are they still important ranking factors for local SEO and just standard SEO?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, citations have always been, to me, have always been a pillar for local SEO. And I don't think that that's changed. I think that citations have slowly, as I mentioned, any off-page, any like building and citations, they kind of lose a little bit of relevance over time. But I mean, it's proven when we have a client and we create citations for them and we optimize them to the best of our ability, we put as much information in them, and we refresh them every month, keep them up to date, we get good results. And citations is only the first thing that a local business should have, which is just local listings, being in a local directory or even a niche directory. But that's but yeah, citations to me are still important. Google still thinks they're relevant. And I mean, you can get a little bit of referral traffic for them, but that's not really what we're trying to like achieve with citations. We're just trying to get more authority if we use citations properly, and also big part of citations is keeping them indexed. If you create citations and they don't have a photo, they don't have opening hours, they don't have like, all the relevant information for the user to make a decision, it's very likely that Google will not index them. And when that happens, it's basically like just Google ignores them. There's no authority transferred from the citation or the directory to your website. So you're really just doing work for nothing, basically, if you're building citations and not indexing them. So our job in the SEO department is just to make sure that we take advantage of citations and include them in our strategy, include them in our some of our content, like just keep them indexed, keep them rolling, keep them relevant at all times.
So just to clarify that, you can create a citation or do a push through like Yext, but a lot of those won't actually be indexed. So there is more work that has to be done to get those indexed. And basically, when they're indexed with Google, then they have a lot more SEO value for your website. And that's a pretty advanced strategy that Andres enlightened me about. It's yielded really, really great results.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the NAP, the name, address, phone number part of, citations has been important for a long time. But again, I'll say it, SEO is dynamic, and it's not just technical SEO. It's not just local SEO. There are so many different components. One of those is all of the instances of your business that include a name, address, and phone number. And if your business has changed locations, which some dealers end up changing locations, and that ends up being an issue. There's lots of buy sells that happen. And so there's changes within name, address, phone number. It's a good segue into something that I wanted to ask about, the optimization of probably the granddaddy of all places where your name, address, phone number exists, and that's the Google business profile. Well, I'll maybe ask some questions after I ask this one. And that is, how can a dealership optimize their Google business profile for better local search results, or to at least to complement the local search results?
Yeah. So where do I start? I would say, I would start from the top, right? If you open your Google business profile, the first thing you're going to see is your business name, right? If your business name, and, Google has tried to disprove this, but if your business name contains a keyword or the geo, that helps you a ton, right? Now you cannot add that as against TOS if that's not your real business name, but they'll tip if you sign a DBA, doing business as in your state, that you can use that, and then Google cannot take it down or suspend you because you're registered as that business
Or before
that
you
name.
or rename a dealership, make sure the geo name is in there. It's absolutely incredibly effective. And your main products, like Honda Houston, is going to help you rank for Honda Houston more than Dick Myers Honda of Austin or something like that. It's just you definitely want to have what you're selling and the geo in there if possible, because that's going to get you it's going to make it a lot easier. It's not going to do everything, but it's definitely going to make it easier.
Yeah. And then another factor would be categories, right? And this is something that a lot of people don't use. And I have a story about this. I'll tell in a second, but your primary category has such a high impact on search results. So if you're a Honda dealer, you don't use car dealer as your primary category. You use Honda dealer because that has that has a lot more weight than the additional categories. Now in the additional categories, you can add, car dealer, you can add used car dealer, used truck dealer, you can use even car loan and financing company, because that's you're literally like providing loans, so might as well use that. And those don't have as much weight as the primary category, but they will help you. And to illustrate this, I was looking for a co-working space in my area, and the ones that the ones that I liked were really far. And so one time I went to the gym to look at the memberships and the space and all that. And they told me like, oh, like there's a co-working space on like under us, like, and it's like 10 minutes from home, like this gym and co-working space 10 minutes from home. So, and I was like, wow, I did not know that. How long has it been around? Like, for a year. And I'm like, okay. So I go to Google Maps and I'm like, co-working space, and I'm like standing in front of the door, and it's like, they're not showing up. And so I type in the name of the business, and in their categories, it says, executive, office, something like executive suite rental agency, something like that. And then corporate office, like those were their categories. And I'm like, you're a co-working space, like, and you're shooting yourself in the foot by not using like the right categories, right? And so that was a real example that just baffled me, because I'm like, what are you doing? You're trying to sound fancy, but you're at the same time you're losing so many customers. So
I would imagine there will probably be a little section there in your SEO, your forthcoming SEO playbook on Google Business Profile Optimization, and making sure you get this roll of keywords lined out correctly, and then categories. And this has actually been something that's come up several times really since people have been paying attention to Google My Business, now Google Business Profile, in this kind of serious manner over the last handful of years, that if you get these categories wrong, or you get too cute, try to add yourself into too many or irrelevant ones, that just that alone can have kind of a catastrophic effect on your local SEO success. So I think that's important. I have, just as an add-on with Google Business Profile, in the last at least 4, maybe 5 years, the growth and clearly strategically how Google wants to utilize the Google Business Profile, I have just, and assuming that Google is telling us the truth, although you can independently verify this based on your own Google Business Profile traffic, but Google has said that it's like, I want to say it's nearly 70%. It's a very high number of traffic that goes through your Google Business Profile that interacted with it results in a visit to your website. It's a very high percentage. I think they grabbed that from an average across multiple verticals, perfectly fine, but curious to know if you guys have any thoughts on this, whether you think that, one, car dealers should be paying attention, and probably power sports dealers too, RV dealers should pay attention closely to the amount of traffic that they have that comes through their business profile that ends up being a touch point at the website. I think all that's really important. And for me, I have told dealers consistently for the last couple of years, optimization at the Google Business Profile level, yes, think about keywords, all the things you guys are talking about, your categories, but keeping it fresh with the content that allows you to place there as well has been something that I'm curious to know if you guys think I'm giving dealers bad advice, but updating information there so that you do have pictures, visual content, but also offers. A lot of people, I know you guys offer this, I'm sure, through your agency for people if they want to, be putting, cars for sale. There's a lot of different ways that you can be optimizing your Google Business Profile. But even outside of, okay, well, you should plug in cars for sale, putting offers in that might be seasonal offers, or maybe you're trying to really raise the level of awareness on deals that you're willing to make on electric vehicles because maybe you're overstocked, you got too much of that in inventory. Or maybe it's, hey, you want to route people through your trade-in tool because you know that your trade-in tool does a really good job of generating leads for the dealership, and they convert at a higher percentage than maybe other lead sources. And so those are all things that can be added to a Google business profile. You can link your trade-in tool there, have a little blurb on it. And there's a lot of things that you can be done there. And I've always told dealers, optimize a lot there, because I haven't found that there's a point of over optimization on the Google business profile. I have found that there is, consequences to trying to be cute with categories or getting things wrong with keywords. But I guess my question for you guys would be, and it's not one that I had planned on asking, can a dealership over optimize their Google business profile to their own detriment? Or is it more of a keep trying, we haven't seen it yet? That's been my experience. Curious to know your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I think for car dealers, you cannot really, well, there are certain things that will get you suspended if you add them to your GDP profile and if you abuse it. But for the majority of the fields available, I mean, when in doubt, just fill it out. Like that's the best advice I can give to dealers. Like, add your payment methods, add whatever you need, because at the end of the day, that will increase your click-through rate at some point, right? Like, there might not be ranking factors. Like, Google's not going to be like, oh, this, they accept Visa and these other businesses doesn't. Like, it's not a ranking factor, or like, having your services listed. It's not like that big of a ranking factor as much as categories does. But yeah, I think that there is no wrong way to do it, but there are some things that are against TOS. For example, adding a phone number to GVP posts. We had recently a client that did that long time ago, and it's just bad for you, because if you look at terms of service, and they were updated a few years ago, you cannot add your phone number to them. I mean, it doesn't say address, but I would not add the address either. I would just make it informative, avoid adding address, avoid adding phone number, but definitely getting your phone number in the GVP post or a GVP image can get you suspended. So I would encourage all dealers to avoid doing that. And then, yeah, I mean, there are no other things that come to mind that can get you suspended other than overly stuffing your business name with keywords. Google will not suspend you. They might give you a soft suspension by asking you to verify your business. But if you can't verify, then they'll suspend you. So yeah, those are the only two that come to mind.
So don't do the crazy stuff, but definitely optimize in ways that get people to, one, interact, stay on your Google business profile, perhaps even do something that actually represents conversion activity. All of those things are good. Let's jump in. I got a couple. Oh, Mike, sorry about that. Didn't want
Service areas or locations is really important too. Most people just fill in one. I think you can put in like 20, right, Andres?
Yeah. Service areas are very important. It's been kind of like our secret sauce for a while, and a lot of SEOs have dismissed them, thinking that they're not relevant. And recently they've regained popularity again. I think Darren Shaw from Weisspark made a post about it recently. But we've been doing service areas since the beginning of SEO at Premiere. Like, that's been we always fill out the service areas. We add any relevant geos, zip codes, counties, etc. Like, as long as it's within 2 hours and it's not like irrelevant to the business, and it's not like super far away, we add it. And it's another way to show up on that's one way to not I'm gonna avoid that word. That's another way to increase your visibility when it comes to proximity, basically. Like if your service areas includes a certain city that you want to appear on when people search for that for a search term with that geo, then that increases your chances of appearing in the map pad for that chart.
Interesting. Okay, got just a couple more questions. This episode's been flying by, guys. Let's discuss on-page SEO. I've heard you guys mention this. I don't know what it means, so I'm curious. You guys have my curiosity piqued with this, so I got to ask about it. And I love duct tape. What's your duct tape approach to target page optimization?
Yeah. So, I mean, who hasn't used duct tape to fix things like
Everything.
Fix everything. That's part of my toolkit every day. I actually just bought this film camera and the battery door is not shutting, so I just duct taped it. So instead of replacing it, I'm like, no, I'll just put tape on it.
That's a sign of your brilliance, Andres.
Thanks. So I would say that the duct tape approach, and this comes from, there's a lot of advice on how to do on-page SEO like very quickly. Like, you're not really diving into it as much, but for car dealerships or for GMs or marketing managers in car dealerships, the best way to do it quick on-page optimization for a page that you want to rank, whether it's an inventory page, a service, financing, homepage, whatever you want, is to include the keywords that you want to rank for in certain elements of your page. Remember, Google ranks pages, not websites, unless you're Forbes or Reddit. Google will rank pages that are optimized, that are relevant to the user's query. So if you want to do that for your dealership, then you want to include the primary keyword with the geo. First of all, if the geo or the primary keyword is in your domain, so I don't know, AmariloHonda.com or something, you already got like great ranking factor working with you, which is the domain, the URL, right? But you want to include the primary keyword on your URL or the keyword that you're targeting in the URL, and you want to make it short. So you don't want to include like, if it's some little Honda dealership, like that's your main keyword. You don't want to like add like Honda dealership in Amarillo, Texas, which is quite longer. You just want to make it shorter for people to read and for the user to read. The other one is the page title. So every page has a meta title and a meta description, and so adding the primary keyword to your page title is another ranking factor. Those two are the most prominent ones, and then the third one would be the heading. So when you have a website, when you imagine when you have a website, you have something called heading. So you have your H1 heading, which is the most prominent one, and usually should tell the user what your page is about. It's the largest heading, and it's the one that most people misuse because they try to be fancy and cutesy with it. And so adding your keyword in the H1 heading is another big factor. Those three would be the most important factors in on page, like adding your keyword there. And then there's two more, which is adding the keyword in the copy, like at least once. I would say once is enough, right? Depends how long your content might be. You can also use variations. You don't have to use the exact keyword on all three of them or on all four elements. And the last one is to add some sort of variant of that keyword or, another supporting term on your headings, on your H2, H3, H4 headings, which are, if you know HTML, those are like the the terms that you use, the tabs that you use, headings. And so by doing that, which is super simple, you're already covering most of your bases. You're already 80% of the way there. There are more things that they can do to optimize your pages, but that involves creating more content, localized content, internal links. Like there's the other 20% of it that requires a little bit more expertise and understanding. But if you cover those, how many did I mention? 5 elements. You're well ahead of everyone else.
There's a theme throughout, if the listeners and or viewers are picking up on this, but I'm guessing that it'll be something that will also be a theme from your forthcoming playbook. And that is, there are some common things relative to SEO about a business that have always been important from the beginning. And it's who you are, Toyota dealership, what you sell, new Toyotas, used Toyotas, Tundras, Tacomas, Camrys, 4Runners, blah, 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 and where you sell it. And I have one last question for you guys, but just listening to you talk through all of these important factors, ranking factors, breaking down SEO, the difference between a local SEO strategy and an organic search strategy that's really much more expansive, far beyond local factors. There still is this very important, the optimization of your Google business profile and its effect on local SEO. All of these things are so critically important, but they all happen to be also easily fall apart if you're not focusing on, well, who are you? What do you sell? Where do you sell it? And I think that this is all really practical and helpful information. I'm excited that you guys are heading in this direction of putting this playbook together, and I actually think we'll be able to actually do some more episodes on the topic. There's just so much always to cover, and we've burned all the way down to the last thing that I wanted to ask you guys on this episode, which was relative to the documentation leak a few months back now, where there was this kind of Google search documentation that leak that everyone started to talk about. I think I first saw maybe Michael King was talking about it, and then Rand was talking about it, and then Joy Hawkins did an episode. I don't know if they did it as a podcast or a webinar where she had both of them on and they were talking about those things. Curious to know if you guys had any particular thoughts, if there was anything that surprised you or didn't surprise you, and maybe was there anything in there that you think that dealers or any businesses should be aware of?
So the leak was very interesting because there's two sides of the coin, which is it's fake, and then the other one is like, this is part of like the API of like some kind of like warehouse project and whatnot. Like, and then there's people that believe that they are real ranking factors, and I just take it with a grain of salt. To be honest with you, there's a few things there that really highlight like links, backlinks. Who's been saying this? Links don't matter. Of course they do. Like, come on, they've been creating that for a while, and like SEOs know that if you do backlink, if you get backlinks, if you do link outreach, if you do PRs, that increases in the long term, not immediately, but in the long term, it'll increase your visibility, your rankings. And if it's done right, of course. The other one that caught my attention was the clicks, right? That's Google's been denying that clicks don't matter, right? But there's so much documentation, and I firsthand witnessed this on the last Brighton SEO conference, where Dan Sullivan was talking. Someone asked him if links matter, and he tried to tiptoe around the answer, but everyone came to the same conclusion that clicks do matter, right? They are. If people are clicking on your search results, Google's going to promote that, right? So it's very important to have good titles, good meta descriptions, schema that enhance your visibility on search results, so you can get the most amount of clicks, and that will help you eventually on on the search results, but also for Google Maps or the map pack, right? If you have good reviews, people are more likely to click on it. If you get a batch of bad reviews and your score goes down, people are less likely to click on your listing. And that's proven to be, like we've had a few clients where, they had, bad management and then unfortunately got bad reviews. And then, they started to lose a lot of they start to lose rankings and organic traffic and so on. So, like that's, I'm convinced, like anecdotally, that it is an important factor.
Time on site was an interesting one too. They were also saying that was not important. Clearly it was. Also a little bit about exact match domains. If you have the keyword in the domain, it helps. Google said it doesn't necessarily help, but it always helps. So a lot of interesting deflections. I mean, I think here at Google, probably because of the ad side of our business, we get so much sold to us, like use this setting, use enhanced CPCs, maximize clicks, use max ROAS, even though you don't have dollar amounts coming in, because you're not an e-commerce business, because we're primarily lead gen. They'll tell us to do a lot of things with tremendous amounts of conviction, and a lot of them have blown up in our face. So we kind of take everything that Google says with a grain of salt, especially if they say it doesn't work on the SEO side. It might still work for a while. But to the point of what you're saying, it's dynamic. Google is always trying to change things, so you can't game the system. They know that, 75% of all people that do searches click on organic listings, not ads. So everything that they can do to shake things up ships more searchers to their ad units. I mean, I remember when we started out, the way we would game the system is we would bid for position 5, remember? Because it was tough. And you get basically the same amount of conversions. Then they killed that, and then they have 4 ads. So all you can see is ads. You have to scroll past the ads, and people still do it. So anything Google can do to make ads look more natural, to move the goalposts around, so businesses have to invest more with ads because they don't have the reliability of a lot of organic traffic. They're going to do all of those things, and that's just something that you have to work with a good partner for. And you definitely cannot. A good partner is not going to be someone that takes everything that Google says at face value. You have to have a lot of tests and experiments going across your portfolio of clients, which is what we do. And then when we find things that work, we double down on them for as long as they work, with the understanding that Google is going to change something tomorrow and we're going to have to pivot again.
It's interesting that, over the years, and I will just speak relative to the automotive vertical because it's the one I know the best. It's been paying my bills for many decades. Google's entrance into the automotive vertical was at first gentle, cautious. The early players that were serving car dealers from an AdWords perspective, Google was largely not involved, not giving advice, not giving tips. It's just, this is the black and white of how the ad setup work in AdWords. Go for it. And they never, ever spoke about SEO when they started to come to conferences on automotive with speakers, when they started to build out and had an automotive team. Even those people, while they were informative in what they were there to deliver, they were always uncomfortable in fielding questions around anything organic, anything SEO. And some people gave him a hard time about that. And I don't know that that was totally fair. But at the same time, been in this for a long time, and I've never seen a representative from Google on a stage anywhere really just being candid, but more importantly, informative about SEO, like sharing things that just, and I understand that. That's not where they're going to make any money. But it's interesting that all of this time has gone by and so much change has happened, and COVID happened, and, people changing up budgets, and even ginormous companies like Google, going back to the drawing board around strategy. And it's companies really, and experts like yourselves, that now I feel like the position that you take with your existing clients and potential clients is, we've been in this so long, We've seen all of the changes. We were here when it first started, and we've been literally standing in the stream before the dam broke, and we weathered the storm, all of the craziness, and we're still here. And why that's important for businesses, let's just say why that's important for car dealers, is having someone that has that experience can be and really are the perfect people to say, we know what was done in the past and how you needed to do paid search, SEO, all of these things to get results. We know what's also changed and what's going on currently. And I think Google needs the help of businesses like yours. Maybe they're probably not going to acknowledge this, but they need that help, that guidance, that expertise that then can also explain to the end consumer of such advertising products what they need to know. Because Google doesn't do what they used to do. Mike, you and I have talked about this before, and that's probably constraint of resources, probably just managing profitability of their own business, whether everyone else likes it or not, whether it really does ultimately end up serving the end user customers as well. I think all that's questionable, but as far as operating the business, I understand it. But I think what I'm trying to say is at this day and age, I think that companies like yours, you're dead set on, we're going to make an SEO playbook. We're going to start to have these conversations. You're also saying we have the experience that we know what's been done previously and what's happening today. And you need somebody that you can trust that's seen that before, that will advise you to make great decisions, that will give you the best yields for the investment you're going to make in these areas. And there was a time period where I felt like I don't know what's going to happen with that. But now more than ever, I think businesses should really be looking for people that have that experience, that have literally been living in the trench. They get it. They understand it. Because if you don't have that, then all of these things that happen, even unintentionally, when Google says, hey, do this, making these ROAS recommendations, making all these things that you are so good at articulating, Mike. And then it's like, that wasn't great because maybe they didn't have enough time to test it. But a lot of times it's just, there's not enough time to take something that's a blanket, like let's put it over every single circumstance, every single dealer. And it's not one size fits all in most of these cases. From brand to brand, from buyer to buyer, Subaru buyers are not Chevy buyers. They just aren't. Are they a car buyer? Yeah, but they're just not the same. Somebody that wants to buy a Crosstrek is not the same person that wants to buy a Silverado. And so you have to be able to take the similarities of the car buyer and then the differences, and then understand and apply all these things relative to an SEO strategy, to a paid search strategy, and navigating it. So I think all that's great. Anyway, this has been a great episode. I want to thank you guys for your time. Look up Premier Online Marketing and then search by employees. Find that company page and employees, and you'll find them there. You'll find all the POM folks there. I always encourage that just because LinkedIn is a great place for this type of B2B marketing exchanges and linking up with people. And every time you meet somebody new who can be of educational assistance, brings you insights, brings you helpful tips, you definitely want to connect with people like that. So look up Andres and Mike on LinkedIn. If you cannot find them individually as Mike Shaug or Andres Fernandez, then look up Premier Online Marketing and then look up their employees and go find them and connect there. This is a great place to park this episode. To the listeners and or viewers, we always appreciate your comments and questions when you view this content, either in bite-sized pieces. We put a lot of it into LinkedIn, YouTube as well. But wherever you're consuming it, if there's a comment section, throw that down there. And also do not be afraid to ask questions. Your feedback helps us deliver really relevant episodes. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time and never want to waste it. So we'll see you again real soon right here on the POMCAST.
Thanks, Shaug.
Thanks, guys.